صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة مظلوم يا غريب كربلاء سيدي يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Please recite Allah salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد.
The dominant culture has had great achievements in many fields. The dominant civilization has made progress in so many domains: medicine, technology, space exploration. But it has regressed in a main area in life. It has regressed in the area of ethics and morality. Again, hence the dysfunctional families, drug abuse, soaring divorce rates. They say that Neil Armstrong was able to conquer the moon, and it was a huge leap for humanity. But he wasn't able to conquer his wife's heart, divorcing her only days after returning to the earth. This is why we need Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam in the 21st century to guide us. We need divine guidance to draw lessons from Ashura. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, who wanted to bring about a drastic change in the society. He didn't want to topple Yazid only. Yazid was an impediment to bringing the change, to delivering the change. But his aim was to change the norms of the society and the status quo. By saying, أَلَا تَرَوْنَ إِلَى الْحَقِّ لَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ. Can't you see that people are not following the truth? And people are applying falsehood. وَإِلَى الْبَاطِلِ لَا يُتَنَاهَا. One of our most important duties in the 21st century, and a lesson that we can draw from Ashura and from the life of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, is being kind to our parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala issues a decree. One decree that encapsulates two elements. He says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. He decreed that you shall not worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And be kind to your parents. Essentially, obligations are divided into two categories: conditional and non-conditional. Unconditional, absolute obligations. In regards to the conditional obligations, we have obligatory acts like Hajj, pilgrimage, Khums, Zakat, Sawm, fasting during the month of Ramadan. All these obligatory acts are conditional. You can only go to Hajj. Hajj becomes obligatory upon you only when you are physically capable. Only if you have the means. You fast when you can fast. Otherwise it's not wajib upon you. You pay zakat and khums only when you can. Only when you have the money. But the second category are obligations that are not conditional, that are absolute, like being kind to our parents, whether they believe in God or they don't, whether they believe in our Prophet or don't, whether they oppress us or they're kind to us, whether they appreciate us or don't appreciate us. Imam Rida alayhi salam says that 3 things that we need to adhere by. And if we don't, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept an excuse on the Day of Judgment. The first thing, if someone entrusts you with something, you have to return it. Imam Sajjad says that if the killer of my father entrusts me with the sword that he used to kill my father, I would return it back to him. Number 2, honoring our commitments. And number 3, being kind to our parents. You will not have an excuse on the Day of Judgment if you are not kind to your parents, whether they're Muslims or not. It doesn't matter. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. He made a decree. He issued a decree. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam once said to one of his companions, this companion had raised his voice arguing with his mother one day before. When the Imam sees him who has the knowledge of the unseen, he said to him that, why did you raise your voice when you were speaking to your mother? He said, we had an argument. He said, why did you have an argument with your mother? And then he said, if there was a word less in expressing frustration than the word uff, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have used it in the Quran. But there is nothing less than the word uff. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. And never say uff to them, and never repel them. You all heard the story of the cow and the Israelites. The whole theme revolves around the cow and what happened to the Israelites. A man is killed. His body was thrown in the path of a prominent figure from the Israelites. So they come to Musa alayhi salam. They said to him that we want to identify the real killer. So Musa alayhi salam is revealed to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to him by saying, اذبحوا بقرة. Tell them to slaughter a cow. They said, are you making fun of us, O Moses? Moses said, أعوذ بالله أن أكون من الجاهلين. I am not an ignorant person. These are revelations from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Slaughter a cow and with its tail you hit the body and the body is resurrected. The story is mentioned in the Quran. Now they could have slaughtered any cow, but they ask about the cow. What kind of cow does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to slaughter? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then tells them that the cow should neither be old or too young. In between. Then they ask, what is the color of the cow? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, صَفْرَاء فَاقِعٌ لَوْنُهَا تَسُرُّ النَّاظِرِينَ. Yellow, very bright, that would please the observer. They said there are many cows with this description. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them more descriptions as if He is giving them an address, a GPS coordinate as to where to go. So they search for the cow after telling them that it's a flawless, spotless cow, bright yellow. So they find the cow. They want to buy it. The owner says, only if you fill the skin of the cow with solid gold. So they go to Musa alayhi salam. Musa says he ratifies the deal. So they buy the cow. They slaughter the cow. With the tail of the cow, the body is resurrected of that man, the victim. When he is resurrected, he says that my cousin killed me and he wanted to blame someone else. And the problem was resolved. Then Musa alayhi salam says that there is a story behind this. The story was that this man, the owner of the cow, one day he wanted to buy a calf. He made the deal. He went to bring the money. He found the keys under the mattress of his father while his father was asleep. He did not want to disturb his father, waking him up. He was very kind, as Musa a.s. says. He was very kind to his parents. So he canceled the transaction because he didn't want to wake his father. Then when his father woke up and he realized that he canceled the transaction because he didn't want to wake him up, his father said, "Here you go. This is a cow that inshallah will compensate for your loss." So then Musa alayhi salam says that look at the levels that you can reach with being kind to your parents. There is a hadith that if you look with passion, with love, if you look at your parents with love and passion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the thawab of going to Hajj. Have you been to Hajj? You know how laborious it is to perform Hajj? Now you get this thawab if you look in the face of your parents with love, with compassion, with mercy. And this is how we become religious brothers and sisters. Sometimes we lose our true north, our moral compass. We don't know how to become religious. Becoming religious is by fulfilling your duty. You have to look at the circumstances, look at yourself, and you have to fulfill your duty. Maybe your duty is to be kind to your parents, to have good manners with your spouse. You have to look at your deficiency and try to fix yourself. One day there was a man who used to perform Salat al-Layl. He said that I was given this tawfiq through my father. They said, "Would you tell us the story?" He said, "Yes. In my wedding night, after waiting for so many years to see my wife, to meet my wife, we go inside the room. It's midnight. My father's room is adjacent to my room. He was asthmatic. He had heart problems. All of a sudden I hear him coughing. He is struggling with breathing. So I tell my wife, allow me to go and see my father." So he goes to his father and he begins to treat his father. Then his father settles down. He goes to sleep. But then he says that if I leave him and something happens, if I go to my wife, I might not be able to return to him. So he stays with his father. He stays with his father until dawn. Suddenly his father wakes up. "You're still here?" He said, "Yes." "Why?" "For me?" He said, "Yes." "It's your wedding night. Your wife is waiting for you." He said, "I thought you might wake up in the middle of the night, not being able to breathe well, so I stayed with you." He said, my father got up. He raised his hands and he prayed for me from the bottom of his heart. Now the hadith says that 3 people, their prayers are answered immediately. One of the categories are the parents. If your parents pray for you, there is nothing that can block the prayer from reaching the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether they pray against you or in favor of you, it goes to the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One hadith states that if a father prays for his son, it's like the prophet praying for his nation. So it will be answered immediately. Maybe we see the results in the future, but the answer comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately and without delay. He said, "I felt a very uplifting spirituality. So I went to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to pray. I opened Mafatih al-Jinan and I found how to pray Salatul Layl. And it's been 25 years now that I've been given this opportunity, this tawfiq, and I've never missed Salatul Layl once in my lifetime. And I've become prosperous, very successful in life, all because of my father." A scholar used to say that 2 elements, 2 things make people successful, And these two things might be the cause for people's miserable lives. Praying on time and being kind to our parents. A scholar says that one year I went to Hajj. He passed away. He was an Ayatollah, very learned, very knowledgeable. He said, I went to Hajj. He said, one of us, a young man who was in the group, he stood out in his spirituality, in his tawfiq. He had no parallel. So I said to him, would you tell me what your story is? I'm a scholar. We have scholars with us, but you're different. He said, everything that I have is because of my father. I said, how? He said, my father had this tradition of attending a majlis in commemoration of Abu Abdullah's tragedy, every month. So he said, one day he calls me and he says to me that I want to go to the majlis. I had a university exam that was very important. It was like a final exam. It was a critical moment in my life. And this discussion that I'm having is not relevant to those that have parents that are living. It's also relevant to those people who have lost their parents. Because the hadith says that our parents have 80 rights over us. 40 of these rights are pertaining to this dunya, this life, and 40 pertaining to when they leave and depart this world. Because you could be kind to your parents when they're alive, and then you lose this connection with them after they die, and this is how your status will change. You become aqul walidain. Or some people, they're not kind to their parents when they're alive, but after they die, they become kind to them. How? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam elaborates by saying you fast on their behalf, you pray on their behalf, and it will reach them. Imam Ali alayhi salam used to do Hajj, tawaf, circumambulate around the Kaaba on behalf of his father Abu Talib. And it was his legacy. He told his children, and his children told their children, our imams. This was one of their wills to their children, to do tawaf and Hajj on behalf of whom? Imam Ali's father. So he said that I had this final exam. I called my brother, who were 3 brothers. I said to him that, would you take my father? He said, I'm busy, I'm taking my family out. I called my other brother. He said to me, I'm too busy. So I thought to myself, should I go and sit for the exam, or should I help my father? He said, I remembered that this is a test. On the day of judgment, these family ties will be severed. فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا أَنْسَابَ بَيْنَهُمْ. You will not be identified through your families, your parents, and your family tree. You'll be identified through your actions, as I mentioned one night. So these family ties are exclusive to this world. When we leave this world, it will be different. So this is a test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us. So he said, to hell with the exam, and to my university, and to the career. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make me prosperous and successful, there's a hadith that the angels wonder and are surprised during 3 times. One of these times is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is raising someone, raising his status, while everyone else in the world is trying to demean that person. Like Abraham alayhi salam, who was only 16. They catapulted him in the fire, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him, protected him. Like Yusuf alayhi salam, he was thrown in a well, and then he was imprisoned, and then he became a servant in the palace of the king. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to raise his status. Everything that they did went against the plot that they had devised. So it's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All it needs is faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I said, I will go to my father. And he didn't even make a mention of his university exam. He went and he took his father to the majlis of Imam al-Hussein, helped him until the majlis finished, and then he returned back. One day, several months later, he said, we were sitting together with his father, they were eating. One of the brothers says to him that, what did you do about your final exam? He said, I didn't want to bring it up, but he insisted. We all knew that you had the final exam. What did you do? How did you do? He said, well, on that day, I helped my father go to the majlis. So the father said, it was for me? For me? He said, yes. He prayed for me from the bottom of his heart. And he said, my prosperity today, my success today is because of my father. Imam Sadiq meets with one of his companions. He said to him, Ya Maysar, you were supposed to die several times before. Your ajal, your death had come in the past. But because you are kind to your parents, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is postponing your death time. He's prolonging your life. Then he said to him that being kind to your parents will increase your livelihood. Your sustenance, your rizq will be increased. There is a scholar that resides in the holy city of Mashhad. His name is Sayyid Ali Shahristani. He once visited Ayatollah Sistani. The Sayyid said to him that I read every book that is published, but your books present new ideas. Your books are something else. And he's written so many books in many fields, especially in the Shia-Sunni debate. So the Sayyid's response was, everything that I have, I owe it to my father. How? He said, because my father, many years ago, had a brain hemorrhage. Instead of throwing him in a nursery home, I took care of him. And all his aspects, he was paralyzed. He couldn't move for 9 years. And everything that I have now is because of my father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me everything because of how I treated my father, because I was kind to my parents. No matter, it doesn't really matter if they're Muslims or non-Muslims. Christian, Jews, atheists. He comes to the Imam, he says to him, Ya ibn Rasulillah, my mother doesn't believe in what we believe in. The Imam said to him, treat her as if she's a true believer. It doesn't really matter. Uwais al-Qarani, the great companion. Uwais al-Qarani was a man that sided with Imam Ali alayhi salam in all his battles. He wants to see the Prophet. He had a mother who did not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He never saw the Prophet. He never met the Prophet. But because of how much he loved the Prophet, he was able to describe how he looked. And because of the connection between the two, whenever the Prophet was hurt, Uwais al-Qarani would be hurt as well. When the tooth of Rasulullah broke in the battle of Uhud, the tooth of Uwais al-Qarani also fell while he's in Qarn, in Yemen. So he says to his mother that I want to visit my Prophet. She says to him, you're allowed to go to Medina as long as you don't stay there for the night. He says, okay. So he goes to the holy city of Medina, comes to the house of Rasulullah, knocks the door, Salama comes out. He says to her that I came to see the Prophet. I came all the way from Yemen, several months. I walked to come to Medina. She said, unfortunately, the Prophet is not in the holy city of Medina, and he will only return in the evening. He said, convey my salam to the Prophet. And the Prophet then came in the evening. When he came home, he said, أَشُمُّ رَائِحَةَ حَبِيبِي مِنْ قَرَنٍ. I can smell the scent of Uwais al-Qarani coming from Qaran. She said, yes, he came from Qaran. He wanted to visit you, but he said that my mother, who doesn't believe in the Prophet, doesn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she told me not to stay till dusk, so I have to listen to her. So the Prophet prayed for him. And it was because of the prayers of Rasulullah, كَانَ يُصَلِّي فِي الْيَوْمِ وَاللَّيْلَ أَلْفَ رَكَعَةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him so much tawfiq that he would pray in a 24 hours, 1,000 rak'ah. And he had the tawfiq to be with Amir al-Mu'mineen in all his battles. A Christian man came to visit Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He came to do business in the city of Medina, and he visited the Imam. He converted to Islam, and he said to him, Ya ibn Rasulillah, Ya ibn Rasulillah, I have a mother who is Christian. She doesn't believe in Islam. How should I treat her? The Imam said to him, treat her better than you used to treat her when you were a Christian, when you go back to your city. So he goes back to his city, And he's a different man now. He treats her with kindness. He never says off to her. And he doesn't, and that's in the Quran as well. You shouldn't wait for them to tell you what they want. He comes to Rasulullah. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I want to go and participate in holy war, in jihad. I have the physical ability. But then he said, Ya Rasulullah, I have parents who claim that they gain comfort from my company. Rasulullah said to him, stay with them, as every day that you spend with your parents is equal to 1 year of jihad in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jihad is very difficult. You're risking your life. But if you spend one night, one day with your parents, giving them comfort, with your company, it's worth more than the thawab that you will get, the rewards that you will receive, is more than the rewards that you will receive if you do jihad for 1 whole year. So his mother says to him that you're a changed man. What happened? He said, yes, I converted to Islam. And that's a very important thing, that this should be reflected on our actions. Islam is a set of qualities that we need to espouse. Islam is not just a slogan or a motto that we use. He said that I'm a Muslim now. I met with someone and he told me to do these things to you. She said this someone is either the Prophet himself or a successor of his Prophet. He said he's a successor of the Prophet. She said, I want to see him. And on the way to Medina, she dies. Then he comes to Imam Sadiq and he says to him that this is what happened to my mother. The Imam said, pray for her. Even if after they die, even if they don't believe in God, you can still pray for them. The hadith says, "Man qara'a al-Qur'an khuffifa an walidayhi walau kana kafiran." When you recite the Quran, even if they're punished on the day of judgment for not believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for being sinful, but still this will lessen the punishment. Now, what is the punishment of not being kind to our parents? I'll just tell you one hadith. The hadith says, "Man nadhara ila abawayhi nadratan maqatin lahum." If someone gazes at his parents with a frown, just a facial expression, expressing his frustration, expressing his anger, لم يقبل الله منه صلاة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept a single prayer from him. نظرا ماقت لهم. A facial expression is enough. Is enough. The Prophet was told that there is a young man who is about to die. We want you to come and be there with him. So the Prophet comes, he says to him, say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Bear witness that there is no God but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He couldn't say it. He repeated it again, the Prophet repeating the statement. He couldn't say it. For the 3rd time, there was a mother who was sitting next to him. The Prophet said, are you his mother? She said, yes. He said to her that you're not pleased with him, are you? She said, for 6 years we haven't been talking at all. He said, it's because of this. And then he said, I will intercede. Would you pardon him? She said, because of you, O Rasulullah, I will do that. When she was pleased with him, he was able to say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Sallu ala Muhammad. The Prophet said to him, what do you see? He said, I see a dark man who is approaching. The Prophet taught him to read the dua, to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Then he said, what do you see now? He said, I see a white man. And the dark man is disappearing. He said, recite it again until he disappeared. Then the man died. Then the Prophet said that our parents are our hell and our paradise. You want to go to paradise? It's through your parents. You want to go to hell? It's through your parents as well. He comes to the Prophet. He said, Ya Rasulullah, I am living a miserable life. The Prophet said, try to please your parents. He said, I don't have parents, they're dead. He said, go to their graves visit them. He said, unfortunately, when I was raised, I never knew who my parents were. They died. He said, go to the cemetery, draw a line with your fingers as if this is where they're buried, and then pray for them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with you. And this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change your life, through our parents. He comes to Rasulullah and he says, Ya Rasulullah, I wish to kiss the forehead of the Hur al-Ain, and I wish to kiss the doorsteps of paradise. He said, go kiss your father's forehead and go kiss under the foot of your mother. If you kiss the forehead of your father, it's as if you kiss the forehead of the Hur al-Ain, the damsels. And if you kiss under the foot of your mother, where paradise lies, it's as if you kiss the doorsteps of paradise. One of the greatest lessons that we draw from Ashura is a lesson of being kind to our parents. On the eve of Ashura, Imam al-Hussein, as I mentioned, he said to all his companions to leave, even his relatives. He said, Abbas, you could go. Just leave me with Ali al-Akbar. Ali al-Akbar is my personal offering. I want him to stay with me. Before coming to Karbala, while the Imam was going to Karbala with the caravan, suddenly the Imam took a nap. Then when he woke up, he said, Inna lillahi wa inna alayhi raji'un. Ali al-Akbar said, you're saying Inna lillahi wa inna alayhi raji'un. Anything happened? He said, I heard someone saying that the caravan is moving and death is lurking behind. What was Ali al-Akbar's response? He said, أَوَلَسْنَا عَلَى الْحَقِّ. Aren't we on the right path? He said, yes. He said, إِذَنْ لَا نُبَالِي. We don't care whether we fall onto death or death falls on us. The companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam had made a deal with the Imam. They said that we go to the battlefield and we fight first. Until we are all killed, then if you wish, the progeny of Imam al-Hussein could participate in the war. Since we're alive, we won't let the progeny of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam to go to the battlefield and fight. When all the companions were killed, it was time for the progeny, for the family of Imam al-Hussein to go. Ali al-Akbar didn't wait for the Imam to call him. He goes to his father. I mentioned in the previous nights that the Imam would refuse. Even when his companions would seek permission to go to the battlefield, he wouldn't allow it until they beg. For Ali al-Akbar, when he came to his father and he said, Abba, would you give me permission to go to the battlefield? Historians tell us that he embraced him straight away, because Ali al-Akbar is his personal offering. It's different. وَأَرْخَى عَيْنَيْهِ الدُّمُوعِ. Tears began to flow, to pour from his eyes. And then he said, Allahumma ashhad ala ha'ula'i. Oh God, bear witness on these people. فَقَدْ بَرَزَ إِلَيْهِمْ غُلَامٌ. The person who is about to go to the battlefield is not an ordinary person. See, if you had a son, definitely you will have an attachment with this son. Now, if this son also reminds you of your late father, who you had a good relationship with, the relationship with your son, the tie will be much stronger. Because whenever you see him, you are reminded of your father. Now, we're talking about someone who had the bravery and courage of Amir al-Mu'minin. This is why he called him Ali. And he was a replica of Rasulullah. Now, we can only understand the relationship between Imam al-Hussein and Ali al-Akbar if we understand the relationship of Rasulullah and Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Very strong relationship. Imam al-Hussein and Imam al-Hassan used to call their grandfather Abba, dad, father. And Imam al-Hassan used to call Imam Ali, his father, Ya Abba al-Hussein. And Imam al-Hussein used to call him Ya Abba al-Hassan, O father of Hassan, O father of Hussein. Until the Prophet died, they started calling him Ya Abba, O father. So it was a very strong relationship. At times, when the Prophet was on the minbar and Imam al-Hussein trips over, the Prophet would come down from the minbar while he was speaking in a congregation to carry Imam al-Hussein and to calm him down. And he would show this to everyone. And when he hears him crying, he would say to Fatima al-Zahra, calm him down. Why is he crying? You know that when he weeps, this irritates me. I can't stand hearing him cry. So it was a very strong relationship. And Imam al-Hussein points out to this point. He says, Allahumma shhad ala ha'ula'i al-qawm. Bear witness. A man is about to go to the battlefield. فَقَدْ بَرَزَ إِلَيْهِمْ غُلَامٌ أَشْبَهُ النَّاسِ خَلْقًا. He was a replica of Rasulullah. And the way he looked, the resemblance between the two. وَخُلُقًا. And not only his physical appearance, but also his morality. We're talking about a morality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises in the Quran by saying, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And truly you are of sublime morality. His morality was like the morality of Rasulullah. Imagine. They say that one day a Christian man comes to the mosque in Medina. He had seen a dream of Rasulullah showing him Jesus and telling him to become a Muslim. So he converted to Islam in his dream. He wakes up in the morning, he goes to the mosque. He says that I want to see the Prophet or someone that resembles the Prophet. He sees Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He said that I want to become a Muslim. I saw your grandfather in my dream last night. The Imam said to him that, do you want me to show you someone that looks like the Prophet? He says, yes. He said, you see that little boy over there who's wearing like a mask, a burqa? He said, take off the burqa. He looked at him, he fell unconscious. He said, oh my God, this is the Prophet. This is what I saw in my dream. Then Imam Hussein says to him that if you had a child like this, if he is hurt, if he is injured, what would happen to you? He said, I would die. He said, then this, my son, will be mutilated. He will not only be killed, his body will be severed into pieces. So the man began to cry. أشبه الناس خلقا وخلقا ومنطقا برسولك. And then the Imam adds, وكنا إذا اشتقنا إلى رسولك نظرنا إليه. And whenever we longed to see your Prophet, whenever we missed Rasulullah, we would look at the face of Ali al-Akbar. Then he wears his armor, he wears the helmet. Before he goes to the battlefield, the Imam said to him to go and say goodbye to your sisters, Ruqayya, Sukayna, to your mother, Layla, and to your aunties, and Kulthum. So he goes inside and the Imam is waiting for him to come out of the tent, but he doesn't come out. He waits and waits and waits. Ali al-Akbar doesn't come out of the tent. He goes inside, he sees a scene that was heartbreaking. He sees Ruqayya on one side, Sukayna on one side, Layla, his mother, on one side, Lady Zainab on one side. They're holding Ali al-Akbar saying, Ila man takiluna. Who do we turn to after? Please don't go. Because he's not traveling overseas, he's not going to study. He's going to be killed. So they said that, who do we turn to after you leave? Please don't go. And Ali al-Akbar doesn't know what to do. So Imam al-Hussein comes and he holds him from his arms. Get up, O Ali. It's time to go. So he goes to the battlefield. And he charges at the enemies like a roaring lion, reciting, Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali. I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. نحن وبيت الله أولى بالنبي are the progeny of Rasulullah. The name Ali instigated fear in the hearts of the enemies. أضربكم بالسيف أحمي عن أبي. I will strike you with my sword, defending my father. أحمي عن أبي, and protecting the progeny of Rasulullah. Now the Imam is standing there on his toes, observing what's happening. They say that when the brothers of Yusuf, they asked their father to allow them to take Yusuf outside to play with him. Ostensibly, that was the pretext. Yaqub alayhi salam, who cried for 40 years, although he knew that his son was still alive. But because Yusuf was the favorite one, it was difficult for him to deal with this tribulation. When they take Yusuf, and now ostensibly they want to play with him, but he gives him a basket filled with fruits. And then he goes out with them to the outskirts of their area, of their neighborhood, to see Yusuf walking. And then 40 years later when he came back, he said to him, "Would you tell me what they did to you?" So he began describing what the brothers did. They took off his clothes, they began to beat him up. Yaqub alayhi salam wailed until he fell unconscious, although it happened 40 years ago. But we're talking about his favorite son. And they say that when Ismail was taken to Mina to be slaughtered, Shaitan comes to Hajar and he says that your son is about to be slaughtered. She couldn't believe it, but when they came back and she saw the scar on his neck, just the idea of her son being slaughtered was so emotional that she started weeping and she fell ill, and 3 days later she passed away. Ali al-Akbar goes to the battlefield and Imam al-Hussein is observing. And then suddenly Imam al-Hussein began to change color. Layla, who is looking at the face of Imam al-Hussein, "Did something happen to my son?" Imam al-Hussein said, "No, but an enemy combatant approached. He might do something, a harm, inflict a harm on my son Ali." She said, "Teach me a dua that I can recite to see my son once more." Imam al-Hussein teaches her to go inside the tent, to spread her hair, and she said, "Ya Radd Yusuf ala Yaqub, oh who returned Yusuf to his father Yaqub. I want to see my son بغربة الحسين. I ask you, oh God, in the loneliness of Hussein, I want to see my son once more." All of a sudden they see Ali al-Akbar returning to the camp. Maybe it was just an excuse to see his father and to see his mother again. But he said, "Al-atash qad qatalani." Thirst is killing me. وَثِقْلُ الْحَدِيدِ قَدْ أَجْهَدَنِي. And the armor is too heavy. فَهَلْ إِلَىٰ شَرْبَةٍ مِّنَ الْمَاءِ سَبِيلًا. Could you quench my thirst? The Imam said to him, "Go back to the battlefield. The Prophet, your grandfather, will give you a cup and he will quench your thirst forever." He goes back to the battlefield. Oh mu'mineen, oh lovers of Hussein, oh lovers of Ali al-Akbar. He stood to rest for a moment when an enemy of God struck him with the sword on his head. Blood began to gush from his head. Arabian horses were trained to take the rider back to the camp. When they embraced the neck of the horse, Ali al-Akbar embraces the neck of the horse, but because of the blood that was gushing out from his head, covering the eyes of the horse, instead of taking him to the camp of Hussein, the horse took him to the camp of Umar ibn Sa'ad. فَقَطَّعُوهُ بِالسُّيُوفِ رَبًا رَبًا. They struck him with their sword, mutilating him. He did didn't say, oh father, come to my rescue. He said, Aba alayka minni salam. My peace be upon you, oh father. This is my grandfather Rasulullah who quenched my thirst. Imam al-Hussein went on the back of his horse. He went to rush to Ali al-Akbar, but he went to the opposite direction. Sukaina said to him, Abba, where are you going? Ali al-Akbar is in the battlefield. He said to her, Bunayya, asbahtu Allah la absar tariqi. I can't see my way anymore. Historians tell us that he was on the back of his horse. He went to the battlefield where Ali al-Akbar was on the floor. He threw himself from his horse. جلس على التراب. He sat on the plains of Karbala. He placed his cheek on the cheek of Ali al-Akbar. But it wasn't enough. He placed his chest on the chest of Ali al-Akbar. Hamid ibn Muslim says that we heard Hussein cry loudly, and it was the first time that we see Hussein cry loudly. على الدنيا بعدك العفا. This life is not worth living after you, Ali al-Akbar. This is when Zainab, when she saw that Imam al-Hussein was about to die, she came out to the tent calling out, Aywa Aliya, Aywa Walada, Aywa Husayna. Wa Zainab qabalat Layla wa qalat. Zainab looked at Layla, she said, you have to renew the grief. أعيد النوح يا ليلى أعيدي على حلو الشباب وبدر تسمن. He was very young. شبيه محمد رهن الجدود.